What's the easiest choice you can make? Window instead of middle seat? Picking a vendor who sends a great gift basket? Outsourcing business tasks you hate? What about selling with Shopify? Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. From the launch your online shop stage to the first real-life store stage, all the way to the did we just hit a million orders stage. Shopify's there to help you grow. Whether you're selling scented soap or offering outdoor outfits, Shopify helps you sell. Wherever and whatever you're selling, Shopify's got you covered. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/try. Go to shopify.com/try now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/try.
Denim is in demand at Plato's Closet in West Ashley and North Charleston. Get cash on the spot for everything denim. Bring in your trendy and classic styles of gently used name brand denim. Get paid for your denim shorts, skirts, jackets, jeans, and more. We're looking for denim that is blue, black, or a bold color, and jeans in styles like mom jeans, bootcut, baggy, flared, and ripped. We want everything denim. Sell your denim for cash at Plato's Closet today. Plato's Closet, located in West Ashley on Sam Rittenberg Boulevard and North Charleston on Rivers Avenue.
No music, no intro. Another episode of Hashtag Saints Twitter podcast. I had to get my man on. Kevin Patra from the NFL Network, NFL.com. He's been one of my guys that we've followed each other on Twitter for years now. I've always thought Kevin to be like the underrated, like unsung element. Every time he jumped on a podcast for around the NFL podcast, he was dropping knowledge, just not utilized. I don't get it, Kevin. Like you're
hey man, sometimes you just gotta walk in the shadows. You'll find the light one day. Don't worry about it. I'm not too worried about it. I like my niche, you know.
But Kevin's always been my dude, and it's funny too because I went to DM Kev to get him on the pod, and so just people listen. This is kind of like the Avengers. Like we have to gather our Infinity Stones one at a time before we have this mega pod episode. It's just so difficult with all our schedules. So this is just one of our episodes before we're able to hopefully do the mega pod one day. But I was DMing Kevin. I looked and I was like, man, we haven't DM'd since like 2018. And then the last DM was like, hey, like you were out to Cali to visit or something, and we didn't, we were trying to touch base and meet in person, and it didn't happen. And the DM was like, hey man, next time I'm out in Cali, like we'll get together. That was 2 years ago, and
I haven't been there since. To be honest with you, I would have gone this year, but then COVID, can't fly anywhere.
Just ridiculous, man. It's just crazy. But Kevin Patra coming at you. Thanks for jumping on the show, man. We appreciate it.
Glad to be here, guys. What do we got?
First things first. I think we got to start with just the state of the NFL. You live in Chicago. I know you're a long time Lions fan, so you kind of have the NFC North like on lock in terms of in terms of what you cover in your niche. But I mean, we have Matthew Stafford, who's on the COVID list. We have Gardner Minshew on the COVID list. So we don't know if the COVID list doesn't mean they necessarily have COVID. It means they may have been in contact with someone who had it, what have you. And we have the opt-outs going on. The more things are going on, I keep thinking like there isn't going to be football. And I'm trying to say this not as a pessimist, just as a realist. And if it does happen, just how it's going to be is going to be so unlike anything we've ever seen before. Like, what are your thoughts? Like, do you think there is going to, obviously they're going to attempt to have a season, but like, how is that? Do you think it's going to work? I guess is my question.
I think if there's anybody that's going to make it work, it's going to be 32 of the richest, mostly white dudes in the world. There's one non-white dude, so I got to say mostly, but I think that if anybody, I don't think there's going to be fans. I think I thought there might be a chance before, but now I don't think there's going to be any fans. And I think that'll be their concession. I don't know that they'll come out and say that right away. I think, but I don't see if if Mark Davis is already saying today that there's nobody going to be in that shiny ass new stadium that they just built in the desert. I don't know how you can have fans anywhere else. But I think that they will. And I think that my main reason for that is because there are enough bodies, whether they're the right bodies, and this is unfair of me to characterize it as such, but there's enough guys who want to play that they'll find enough players each week. I think you're going to go through a lot of guys are going to be on the COVID list, but these are mentally they're warriors, and they won't, once they're off that list, they're going to be back on the field. I don't think they're going to be afraid of catching it again and that sort of thing. So I think we'll have a season. I don't know how good the football is going to be. I think it's going to be real poor. Yeah. And I think we're going to see a lot of situations like you had in Detroit last year where David Blau is the quarterback for some reason. Like, I think we're going to see a lot a lot going on. And like
David Blau almost beat the Packers week 17. David Blau, put some respect on his name.
Yeah. And he had a real entertaining first half of Thanksgiving too. And that's about all we can give him credit for.
That's about it. That's the good story. But it is funny. Yeah, go ahead.
I think that we're going to see the teams that can play their fourth and fifth cornerbacks and their fourth and fifth receivers and guys that have been in the building. Those are the teams that are going to win. So I think depth's going to be huge. And I think, but to go answer your question again, I think there'll be a season. I think there's these guys, it's shitty to say, but I don't think they care. They want their money, and I think they're going to do whatever it takes to get it.
Yeah, I think that's the key point is the money. And, I tried not to be cynical. And what kind of was surprising was the player opt-outs, because it kind of went against my cynicism. You had guys that's really like, I'm going to walk away from money, for take care of my family or, for my mental health or for whatever. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of surprising, but I think the majority, especially when you look at the owners, when you just look at the NFL, how they've attacked this whole COVID thing, mm-hmm. They had the NFL draft. They didn't cancel anything. They had, free agency. They went forward as if, look, we know COVID exists, but we're going to try to manage it as much as possible. And that's pretty much been the NFL theme this whole offseason. I think the season's going to be just like that. And like you said, what it'll look like, we shall see. But I don't think they're going to stop football. I mean, it's just too much. I mean, the TV money, it's just too much.
Yeah, I think that, it's completely different than college too, where you're like, we can pay you to not go out to a bar and we're giving you, I think that's going to be the biggest thing that it's going to be the old guys, like who have a lot of money on the line, like legit a lot of money on the line, telling the younger guys who just got $100K dropped in his bank account for the first time in his life, dude, you can't go out right now because you're going to get sick and you're going to get me sick. I'm going to get my kids sick and I'm going to lose 30 mil. Because we're going to close. So it's going to be a lot of guilt tripping, I think, of the younger guys by coaches who already do that shit to begin with. They're the biggest naggers on the planet, and the older guys that have a lot of money on the line that if a season were to stop.
We touched base. We had discussed this a little bit on Twitter, just back and forth, like in mentions, just this whole juxtaposition that you're going to have with the younger players and the vets. And, not only from the kid aspect or the family aspect, which is obviously very important,
right?
But,
absolutely.
I could also see it too. Like you have a team like the Saints who, their mantra is Super Bowl or bust, Super Bowl or bust. And it's kind of been that mindset for the last 3 years. I could see a vet, who thinks that they are close. They arguably have the best roster in the league, mm-hmm. talking to these younger players saying like, listen, like we're too close to our goal to, risk like an outbreak of the entire team getting sick just because, one person makes a stupid decision. Peter King reported recently that essentially the Saints have basically have created like a mini self-isolated bubble in a sense, which is not that surprising considering that Sean Payton, was a big name that was tested positive for it in March. And I think it's super confusing in the sense of, and I don't know if it's just maybe the logistics doesn't work, but like, why hasn't this been a more of a thing, more widespread around the league? Like,
Well, I think I could tell you part of it is some owners are cheap as hell. Mike Brown doesn't want to pay for 100 and 200 people to sit in a hotel that he's got to basically buy. I mean, in Cincinnati, like, I think there's just guys that aren't going to spend that money, and the NFL is not going to mandate that they do that. So I think you have certain teams that will do that. Now, I'm interested in that, how that works, because it's not mandatory. So if it's not mandatory, then it only takes one anyway. The guys that's not chilling there. So it still feels like a partial measure. And I 100% agree with the whole, we need to just do anything we can to minimize. Like when people were mocking, like, oh, you can't celebrate after a play. Okay, yes, it's silly, we're hitting each other and we can't celebrate, but you take as many steps as you can. So I respect Sean Payton for doing it, what he can. I'm just wondering what it's going to look like. So if I'm sick of sitting in there for the first 2 weeks, am I allowed to leave now? Am I allowed to skip out after I've been there? Or can I come later? Like, I just wondering what it's looked like. And it's only training camp. So, like, I just feel like most guys are going to be like, I don't care if I get sick now because I'm going to be fine later. So, I mean, your Gardner Minshew's, your Matthew Stafford's. Now, we don't know about the virus, how many times you can catch it or what.
Right.
We don't know shit about it because nobody seems to know.
Nobody
knows. So, like, but if it were, like, I mean, the whole joke to began when, and everyone thought you had immunity, was the joke was that Bill Belichick already gave all his players coronavirus so that during the season they wouldn't miss any. And I'm not suggesting that's wrong or right. I'm just pointing out that it was a joke. But, like, I mean, if you did catch it now, I mean, maybe you're in a better spot than somebody that didn't have it.
Yeah, if you had it and didn't, you're not suffering any ill effects afterwards. If you just had it and say you got over it in a week or two, and you're supposedly immune to it now, at least for a couple of months. They say, like we say, we don't know, but it's just such a crazy situation, man. I don't know how you feel as like a writer, but this is the most interesting season. It's like the stories that are going to come out is just going to be nuts.
Oh, I think once it gets kicked off, because everyone's going to be under the microscope. How many times are you going to see? I mean, the Lou Williams thing with the basketball already, and they were in a freaking bubble. So how many times are you going to pop on Instagram and it's going to be XYZ player is at, and but the first man that came to my mind, and it's not fair to him, is Zeke. Like,
oh, that is very fair because he makes a lot of dumbass decisions.
So I'm just thinking, like, can't you just picture, like, oh, he was at a club in Dallas, and you're just like, what the?
Yes, grabbing
TMZ's paying thousands of dollars for pictures,
grabbing titties again.
Yeah, like, come on, man. Like, so it's gonna be I feel like it's gonna be a lot of that.
Yeah,
I feel like it's gonna be a lot of that because, I respect these guys' mentalities because it takes some different kind of level of mentality to get where they're at, combined with talent. But the mentality to me is number one, and so they think they're invincible. So, I mean, it's hard to tell a man with that kind of money and that kind of mentality what to do a lot of times.
That's where the
coaches are going to be huge.
A very good point of that, like, they think they're invincible, because I think it's an underrated point that hasn't been brought up more, because if you've been around a high-level athlete, like, that is very, like, spot on the money. I think a way that potentially the Saints may have a slight advantage in the sense is that their head coach has already shown, like, hey, like, I'm not invincible. And if there's one person that can use mind tricks or motivation or whatever in terms of, it's Sean Payton saying, like, conveying the message, like, I got it in March. Like, no one on this team is invincible. And I think that's probably why some of the measures of more safety, has been put into, like, the isolated self bubble or what have you. But being that your stomping grounds is in the NFC North, I think the NFC North is in a very regardless of what happens in the season, I think it's in a very fascinating state of affairs with just the teams in that division. The Lions are I don't even know about the Lions. What are the Lions, I guess, is
I mean, I think they're a Matthew Stafford injury away from being 1-15, and
For
they're
sure.
a Matthew Stafford not injury away from being 10-6. So that's what the Lions are. I think if you watched last year, I mean, those first like 6 to 8 games that he was healthy, he was off the charts.
Yeah.
I mean, and I know it didn't show up in the win column because they had a couple really shitty losses, the Green Bay loss, and they should have beat Kansas City if, Kerryon Johnson doesn't fumble at the goal line. They would have beaten those two teams that were both in the playoffs. So I think it would have been a different season last year had David Blau not had to take over. So, I mean, I think it depends for the Lions, it depends on Matthew Stafford staying healthy. But my whole I told somebody I was cautiously optimistic that if everyone stayed healthy, they have a good team that they could contend. Now, I'm not going to say they're going to win the division, but what they have is a good explosive offense with Kenny Galladay, and Swift could bring something to the backfield, and their secondary is better than I think people will give them credit for if Okudah is the type of player that all the Ohio State guys say he is. Mm-hmm. But they're too thin, in my opinion, to actually do it. This is a year more than any that depth is going to matter the most. And I don't see the Lions. That was their issue last year. They had no depth, and I still don't see it. I don't know, their 4th and 5th receiver is not going to get it done. Their 4th and 5th cornerback is not going to get it done. They already have big questions at the pass rusher. I just don't see how the teams with that little depth, even if they have the star caliber talent, can win in a year like we're going to see.
So this is not really the right. So this is not a fair question for me to ask it, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So besides the fact that Matt Patricia is white, like, why does he still have a job?
Well, the reason he got the job in the first place, because Bob Quinn and him were boys from New England, and that's the reason.
There you go.
That's the reason. Well, here the shitty part of it was, so Bob Quinn gets the job in the first place, and everybody and their mother knew, whether it's spoken or unspoken, that he wanted to hire Matt Patricia. Now, Martha Ford, the previous owner who just stepped down, wanted to keep Jim Caldwell. She wanted to keep him, and she said, if you want this job, I'm just assuming, because that's the only reason to keep Jim Caldwell when you're hiring a new GM. Why would you? The worst thing teams do is have a new GM and
keep
not
the
a
same
new
head
coach,
coach,
or a new coach and not a new GM.
Yeah.
Just either give it out. He had his one, let's rebuild. Let's do the whole thing. So now we're in a situation where he had to wait 2 years. Then they're just floating around in middling area, which is pretty much the worst in the NFL. You either want to really suck or you want to be good. So I understand why they sort of she gave up her stance, like we might not be getting any better. And he finally got his guy. Now, to me, it was like you should have done it in the beginning. First off, it should have been the first thing, or at least maybe 1 year after. But it was predetermined anyway. Jim Caldwell was in an unfair position. Put in an unfair position. Now, I'm not a huge Jim Caldwell fan. I think he's a solid coach, but he's one of those coaches that he needs good position coach. He needs good coordinators to be for him to work well. He's not going to do it for you. So, but that's the reason that Matt Patricia has a job still, and this is the year. I mean, she basically said, "You're making the playoffs this year, or you're both gone." And that was what the thing is. I don't think they wanted to fire Matt Patricia, and unless they were going to get rid of Quinn, and I think they wanted to give Quinn another draft. That's my just speculative take on it.
That's going to be interesting. And then, with the NFC North, you have this whole drama with Aaron Rodgers. With, Jordan Love getting drafted.
Yes.
And it's just, I don't know, it's just such I've been following Rodgers for so long, and he's such a great quarterback. And, he's had his kind of up and downs the last few years. And there's this kind of haze over Green Bay that you never really see because it's such a, like a historic class act franchise. I've never seen this sort of haze, just dark cloud just sitting over a franchise. So I'm just kind of interested to see how all this works out. I don't know. I really don't know what's gonna happen. But I mean, when I listen to Aaron Rodgers on that little podcast he did with Kyle off of Good Morning Quarter, Kyle Brandt. I mean, he just sounds so annoyed. Like he still sounds like he's annoyed since draft day.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I understand completely where he's coming from. Like, here's the thing. I understand why they took a quarterback, but why did they do it this year? Because if you think Love is the guy forever, I guess I can't hate on you for doing that. It's interesting to me that they traded up and did it. They didn't feel comfortable enough waiting for it, like, because that's how you got Rodgers in the first place. You'd think you'd have that sort of patience. I know obviously it's a completely different GM group, but my interesting thing is they can't really get rid of Rodgers for 2 years without taking a massive salary cap hit.
Yeah,
like
right.
Matt, like you were talking in the 20 million. So he's there for 2 years. What's the number one advantage of having a rookie quarterback is that they're freaking cheap.
Exactly.
For at least 4 years, mostly 5. And then, you can play the franchise tag, or at least, you can bring the cost down. But they're cheap for 4 years no matter what. That's why the Cowboys are morons for wasting. Dak Prescott was the biggest bargain in freaking sports, and you wasted it. And so you're going to waste 2 years of Love sitting behind Aaron Rodgers because you can't really move on from Aaron Rodgers unless you're willing to eat a crap ton of money. And next year with the lower salary cap, can you really eat $20 million? I don't think so. So you're sitting Love for 2 years. So at the most now you get him on his third year, and then you have the fourth year, and then he's going to be on the fifth year
option.
And then that's when it starts to bump back up. So it just, to me, timing wise, they must really, really love Love. They have to. Right. I don't get the logic behind it any other than that, because Rodgers wasn't retiring in 2 years. It wasn't like the Favre thing where going back and forth. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. There was no question that he was coming back for 2 years at least. And now I don't understand it. So I'm not the biggest Rodgers fan. I think he's a dick a lot of times for no reason.
Oh yeah.
Let's let it go. Let the chopper out. Let it go. Come on now.
So I'm not a defender of his, but I get it. Like, there's nothing in the logic of the move that makes any sense, and that's why Packers fans were so like, "What the fuck just happened?" And I understand it. Because I can't wrap my head around the logic unless the only thing that makes sense is that this whole Love Eyes dreams shit, and like they wanted their own guy because LaFleur and the GM, they're both newer, and they just wanted their own guy. That's the only thing that makes sense to me. Logic. I can't wrap my head around it any other way.
I mean, especially because they went. I don't think they were as good as their record indicated they were last year.
They were not. But, absolutely agreed. 100%.
But they still went 13-3, and I still haven't listened to it, but according to Ryan, Aaron Rodgers were just like at the TV, like, it's about to be a wide receiver, like we're gonna get like additional help besides like Devontae Adams, and it's like, nope.
He was just like us, like he was like Saints fans, trying to get Justin Jefferson,
Speaking of Justin Jefferson, we can make the transition to the Vikings. So like it seems like, I mean, say what you will about Kirk Cousins, but it's interesting to me that I remember 2 years ago, Zimmer kind of felt like he was on the way out in Minnesota, like he was kind of like a lame duck, and now both him and I'm blanking on the GM's name right now.
Spielman.
There you go. Just got contract extensions.
Right.
Kirk Cousins, I don't want to go through that debate, but just in terms of stability from a team standpoint, obviously they traded Diggs away, which I understood why they did that. They drafted Justin Jefferson. They're having this contract dispute or what have you with Dalvin Cook, but I'm sure that'll get resolved somehow, some way. Like, secondary aside, they're still, which I'm not trying to not say that secondary is not important. They're still a good team. And probably one of the better teams in the NFC North.
They're certainly, I think they'd probably be the favorite if I had to rank it right now. I think they would probably be the most stable team.
Yes, that's a good word.
And I think that I like their pieces on offense. You have Cook as the engine who can do it in the run and the pass. And Cousins, as much as people hate on him, he gets the job done. He's not going to wow you, but he makes most of the throws. And just because he loses in prime time doesn't mean that any other time he plays the football game doesn't matter. I think that he's fine. And I do think that Justin Jefferson is kind of a key to me on that offense, because if he has rookie struggles, and we've seen wide receivers struggle as a rookie historically.
Yeah, and Ryan and I have hit on this. Like, this is such gonna be a hard year on all rookies, but I couldn't imagine being a rookie wide receiver coming into what's not quote unquote training camp, but it's not really training camp, and then you're learning an NFL offense. Like, it's gonna be tough on rookie wide receivers this season.
I will say it. I think at least he has an advantage because he came from a program that had switched offenses and they had more of an open style passing offense. So I will say he has an advantage from that to where somebody coming from, I don't know, Stanford or Michigan or Ohio State might have a little bit, harder time transitioning. But so I think he has that advantage, certainly. But I think just the way their team lines up on offense, if he struggles, Tajay Sharp doesn't do it for me, really. I mean, we've seen he couldn't even crack the rotation in Tennessee. So I just don't see where they get it. And they had a lot of losses on defense, but I think that I stand kind of where the Vikings organizationally stand, that you trust Zimmer to cover up a lot of that shit. You trust Danielle Hunter is going to be a monster at the pass rusher, so you're not too worried about losing other sides of it. So I think they'll have enough, and Barr's still there, Kendrick's still there, Harrison Smith is still on the back end. I was actually surprised that they franchise tag Anthony Harris because I didn't think they would have spent that kind of money on one player.
That was surprising.
But keeping those two together, I think that really opens the door for what they can do in the secondary. I think because he's going to trust those guys. So if they take a little more risks with the corners, I think that's what their game plan is. I think that the Vikings would be my pick to win the division today if I had to make it today. I mean, two players go out with COVID and who knows what the hell happens. But if I had to today, I think that they're the most solid, and they have pretty solid depth other than receiver. And who knows about their offensive line, but you could say that about more than half the teams in the NFL.
It's kind of crazy with the Vikings how they've become kind of a low-key rivalry with the Saints.
Oh yeah.
They had they knocked the Saints out of the playoffs this past season. Surprisingly to everybody else.
Did you guys come down on the it was a pass interference, but they didn't call it side?
It was, but by that point I just was like kind of done with it.
Yeah.
Like, it shouldn't even got to that point, so it's not like the non-call from the year before.
Yeah.
Like,
sure.
I was just like, I mean, the way the refs did last year, it was like, you just couldn't even be surprised at that point, But, I mean, I was just more pissed about just the Saints in general, how they played. Just when they came out, they just looked flat and unprepared and all that stuff. But then you had, the Minnesota Miracle a few years ago, the Saints Super Bowl year, you had, the whole Bounty Gate, beating up on Favre, So it's kind of fun how this kind of become a mini rivalry. So, I mean, I think the Vikings are all right, man. I wouldn't surprise, but that's secondary though. Oof, I don't know, man. Like,
I mean, they're counting on that rookie Gladney. I mean, they're basically, like I said, they're counting on Zimmer to be like, all right, Zimmer, be Zimmer and fix
cook it up.
Yep,
cook it up.
My favorite team in NFC North, our old friend Ryan Pace with the Bears.
I have a lot of thoughts on Ryan Pace, and I will give none of them because I want to keep my job.
we I don't know what it's about Ryan and our podcast that brings that out of people where that's a line that they consistently say. I don't even know. I don't even know where you start. Like, I feel like he's taken, since he's gotten there, he traded for Mac, he got all this acclaim, and then the Bears defense became legitimately dominant. Legitimately dominant. And then they had the whole field goal, whatever. But let's just be real. Like, the thing that's been holding this team back has been the decision that Ryan Pace made in the draft when he drafted Mitchell Trubisky over Mahomes and over Deshaun Watson. The team is still this, like, it may sound like hyperbole, but I truly believe that draft decision is one of the top 3 worst ever made in the NFL. And the team is still suffering ramifications from that pick. Like, we're trading for Nick Foles. Like, they still don't have an answer.
Doubling down on a mistake But you're not only trading for Nick Foles, and then you're guaranteeing his contract basically, like $20 million of it. Like, I'm sorry, like, why do you think that Nick Foles is a better quarterback than Cam Newton or Jameis Winston? Yeah, he might be more a known quantity, but that's not what's going to win in your offense right now with the players you have right now. You need a dynamic quarterback, not one that's going to sit there and take a hit and maybe throw a deep ball to who at this point is on your Ted Ginn, your guy. Like, that's your guy. Like, that's your guy now.
One of their 5 tight ends that they have.
Yeah. Oh, he's got a black hole for tight ends. It doesn't. Why are you signing? Like, Jimmy Graham to me is the number one. Like, what are we doing? It's almost the equivalent of Bob Quinn signing every old New England Patriot player. It's like, why can you just get out of your own head for 1 minute and not be an asshole? Like, what? Like, why are you signing Jimmy Graham for any guaranteed dollars at all? He can't run. Yeah. He can't move. Like, what are you doing? It's not 2008.
Yeah, it's a sad sight when you look at it too. It's like, oh my God, Jimmy, what happened?
But I feel bad for the guy, but it's not. I mean, he can't move anymore. He just doesn't have it.
Yeah, and it's I think in reality they got Nick Foles because Nick Foles is not that alpha male type that's going to come in and be like, this is my locker room, I'm about to take it over. Cam Newton would have been that guy. Jameis Winston would have been that guy. And they know Mitch Trubisky, who, reportedly, they wanted to turn the TV sets off in the gym so he didn't see any bad press about him. He's just, they're just still trying to protect him, and I guess I understand that, but man, that's just a sad state to be in right there.
I just like I said, you're doubling down on a mistake, and then sure, you're coddling the guy, but you're still going to replace him. So what's the point of coddling him if you're going to replace him anyway? Replace him with a cheaper, better option. Like, if you were going to do that, to me, Cam would have been the perfect guy. Like, first of all, everyone in Chicago would have wanted him. So, like, he basically could have been like, hey, you want the guy? Yeah, let's go. We'll sign him for sure. And then if he gets hurt, then you're like, well, Mitch has got a shot again. Well, I didn't see the downside in that. Like, you have an upside where you're a playoff caliber team if Cam's healthy, and the other side is he gets hurt again, and then you can let your guy get one more shot with a great defense, because they still do have a really good defense, and Robert Quinn is going to be a beast on the other side from Mac. So they do have a really good defense still, but the offense is just an absolute mess.
That's our guy, Ryan Pace. I
don't remember how he came up in New Orleans, frankly. So, like, did he just pick all the defensive players and Sean got to pick all the offensive players? Because it seems to me that he can't figure out a good offensive player from a shitty offensive player to save his life. The only one he got right is Allen Robinson.
I even felt, I'll speak on it and I'll let Ryan speak on it. I always felt that even in his time with the Saints, like, he was overrated. And I don't know if it was just at the times they were picking players and they were just working out just scheme wise. But like, there are some like Martez Wilson, that's round 3. Like, that's a Ryan Pace pick. And I kind of made the joke that when they drafted Leonard Floyd in the first round, the year that they drafted Leonard Floyd, like, they basically, like, they're the same player. Like, he has a type, I guess you could say, and he hasn't moved from the type of player what he looks in. So I've always felt he was overrated, and his draft classes were overrated when he was with the Saints. And I know that, and maybe it's just the infinity, that they had for him. But like, Saints media were like, "Oh God, like, Ryan Pace is now a GM, like, he's live." Like, I was like, okay.
Have y'all seen the Saints drafts?
Like,
it's like,
and
it's like the way the Saints draft. I mean, Mickey Loomis, he's the quote unquote GM, but he's more of like the consensus builder.
Right.
So he try to brings in all the smart guys and then just try to mesh it all together. But Ryan Pace, he was the guy. He was the Jeff Ireland, the way Jeff Ireland is now. Mm-hmm. And of course, Sean Payton has his picks. He's just the head coach. He's the offensive guru. So if he has like a guy that he wants, Brandon Cooks or whatever,
Kamara in the third.
Right.
He's going to get his guy regardless. But other than that, Ryan Pace would have. And Ryan Pace, he just had a lot of misses. He likes
lot of them.
He likes high upside, freak athletes, and kind of ignores the tape, and just goes off that athleticism and hopes the coaching staff could just coach it up, which is just not the case all the time. Sometimes they're just not good football players.
Yeah.
And offensively, obviously that was mostly Sean Payton's realm, like you said. So, if Sean Payton and his group would X out a player quick if they didn't see him, contributing, So Chicago, I don't know what to say about them. It's a tough road, but it's going to be tough for the next year or two, at least.
I feel bad for Allen Robinson, man. That guy needs to get
Yeah.
paid.
Oh man, so I'm telling you, it was so frustrating about the Bears is you can't even evaluate the wide receivers because of the quarterback position. So you don't even know what they really have. They could have some decent wide receivers, but you just don't know.
Yeah, Allen Robinson, what he's doing with what he has is impressive. He went from imagine that as a career. You go from Blake Bortles to Mitch Trubisky.
I feel bad for that man. I tell you, he needs to get paid because he deserves a lot better than he's gotten in the NFL.
Surprised this man had to snap during the game and just started throwing hands. just
pull a Vontae Davis like this.
Yeah, just something retired half them.
The game ain't in me no more. So I would be remiss if we didn't ask you what your thoughts were on the Saints coming into the season. They added Nigel Bradham for wide receiver depth. They signed Benny Fowler. They got down to their 80. Released quite a few. They released some names that people were like, oh, whatever. Thankfully, Tommy Lee Lewis isn't on the team anymore, but I'm sure he'll bounce back up really quick from it. But just what your thoughts are for the team going into the upcoming season.
I think that they have every advantage other than not getting fans in the stands. That's an ultimate advantage, I guess. But I think they're the team to beat in the NFC. I think the NFC West is just going to pummel each other. And not to say in the South isn't good as well, because we don't really know what Tampa has yet, and I don't think they're going to know. And I think that's another thing. I think that Week 1 game, and I know Ryan made this point on Twitter that they haven't shown up for a Week 1 game in about 20 years, but I do just the fact that they have played together and Brady hasn't had. He's done the stupid let's get together at a high school field, but that's not the same. And I think that the fact that the Saints have a lot more continuity is an advantage, and to have that to be a division game. So if you had played Brady's team in Week 4, I think you're playing a different team than you're going to play in Week 1.
Yeah.
I think, you look historically at the Patriots and those Brady teams, and maybe this was more Belichick, and we might find out, but they always, hit or miss in the first month and then figure it out, right? You're testing, you're probing, and usually you don't have that many division games. Well, they kind of flipped the script a little bit this year when they did the schedule, and they put some more division games earlier than I remember. So to start off with that game off the bat, I think is going to be big for that division. So I think they have the leg up there, and with the NFC West beating each other up, because I just think that that's going to be one of those things that the three best teams, and I don't think the Rams are among them. I think the Cardinals are going to be one of the upstart teams that if you're not paying attention, you were like, what happened? But if you're paying attention, you're like, yeah, I can see that.
Man, I'm all in the Cardinals Kool-Aid, but man, that defense still, I don't.
Yeah, but I like Simmons. I like, you still have Chandler there. I just think they have some pieces, and Patrick Peterson isn't. Here's the thing. You can tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like Saints fans have gotten on Marshawn Lattimore for he's not as good as he was as a rookie, blah, 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 blah. And everybody wants every cornerback to be freaking Deion Sanders and Darrelle Revis. And it's the hardest position to play in the NFL other than quarterback.
To me, it's the hardest position to play all of sports. It is insane how hard it is to play quarterback.
Especially in today's NFL where, they got every counter to this and that, and they're passing the ball way more. Like, how do you expect the guy to be on the money every single play? So I think Patrick Peterson, honestly, I think he's going to do the whole Richard Sherman thing, where Richard Sherman looked kind of toast for a year and a half, and then he's back a little bit. So I think you're going to see that from Patrick Peterson a little bit too. I think he's going to come back into his own after he was suspended to start last year. It just never meshed. I think their coordinator is a little bit more question to me than anything else, than the actual talent on the field. So, which Vance Joseph from Denver is the coordinator. I just don't. I mean, it's a very bland system, but I think they're going to be better. So, but I mean, you asked about the Saints. I think that they have the most depth, and I'll say it for the third time. The teams with the most depth have a huge advantage. They have it every year, but this year I think it's going to be massive.
Yeah, it's if the season happens, it's going to be interesting because I'm pretty 90% sure this is Drew Brees' last season.
Mm-hmm.
He said he came close to it. He really did come close to it this past offseason to retiring. So I really think this is kind of it. Like, this is the last ride, and I mean, it's rare that you see the last ride come out, with a Super Bowl championship.
Right.
You saw it with Peyton Manning a few years ago, and they basically just had to carry him downfield. Yeah.
Well,
so
I mean, hey,
and that might be the case with the Saints, but they have Taysom Hill, they have Jameis Winston.
Well, you'll know how Sean feels about it because of how many reps Taysom will get at quarterback. If he doesn't trust her, just going to add more and more.
Yeah. Oh, man, don't mention that because, I mean, I understand why they canceled preseason, which makes 100% sense. But I just wanted to see Jameis throw the ball in the Sean Payton offense so badly because I just know Sean Payton was going to see it and be like, ooh, yes. I like this, I just really love it. He's gonna see it in practice, but it's like a football game,
right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just fascinating. Like we're in August. Training camp's supposed to start with padded practices, quote unquote, on the 14th, and then football's supposed to be here in a month and a week on the way, and it's just absolutely insane to me. I can't.
You just play games, man.
I guess.
Here's what I think is funny. All these coaches who have been like, well, we don't do it in college. Yes, but those teams in college. The good teams are starting out with Our Lady of the Tour and week 1 and 2. Like, they're not playing every 4 years a team will Ohio State will play Alabama or something like that. Like that's rare. Most of the time it's Cupcake City. So this is not. I mean, this is completely different. Like, you're going to give away 2 games, and if those are division games, you're down 3 games, 2.5 games. So yeah.
Any other? I mean, we kind of stuck with the NFC. How does we can kind of take a peek into the AFC? Besides the usual Ravens, Chiefs. Love, which they deserve their love, obviously. Anyone else in the AFC that has your eye or that you're just interested?
I'm interested in Denver. I liked what Drew Lock looked like at the end of the year. If he progresses, I mean, this is always like a 5-game sample. It's too small to make any judgments, to be honest with you. But if he continues at that place, and then they get film on him, and maybe he struggles because they figured out what he's doing. But he's got a cannon. He seems to have this cocksure attitude about what he's got. They just gave him a shit ton of weapons. My issue with them is their right tackle.
He just opted out, and then Garrett
Bowles is the other side. So he might be smothered, and it might kill all the optimism. But I do like it, and if Bradley Chubbs comes back, him and Miller on the other side, and they lost Chris Harris in the back end, but I think AJ Boye fills that hole well enough. And Jarrell Casey for a 7th-round pick was a freaking goddamn steal. And anybody who didn't watch Tennessee Titans play the last 4 or 5 years, you missed. I mean, he is a beast in the middle. And
a beast. I'm so glad you brought that up. I completely forgot about that. That was such a steal. Like, that was crazy, man.
And
I don't understand that.
I mean, I understand that. Is it Simmons that they drafted in the draft? Tennessee drafted like I understand like he blew up last year, but like I didn't understand the rush, especially for a team that just went to the AFC Championship. I didn't understand the rush.
It was money. It was money.
I mean, I get that.
Yeah, that's the only reason I guess nobody, like literally had to be nobody else wanted to take on that contract, because that's the only reason you get a seventh, right? Because somebody would, talent-wise, he's worth way more than that. So, like, talent-wise, so it's just the contract. And I'm assuming they were looking at the Derrick Henry deal and being like, we've got to do something to have a little bit more money here. And then they liked Simmons. So I just think that for John Elway, I feel like he goes every 4 or 5 years off in the wilderness and has a shitty time. And then he comes back and just hits 2 home runs, and then they're good, and all the Elway lovers forget about all the shitty time he put him through.
That's a great analogy regarding John. We're like spot on.
Oh, yeah, I'm high. I'm not going to say I'm high on Drew Lock, but the little bit I did watch of him, watched him on Game Pass a while back, and I was like, okay. I mean, look, you can't make huge judgments about it, but that's all you got. And we've seen a lot of rookies play 5 games, and it looked horrible. Like, absolutely horrible. So, I mean, that's all you can go of. So, I'm impressed to see where they go.
If Jerry Jeudy is as good as he was in college and as good as we think he can be, him and Cortland Sutton, I mean, that is a pair of wide receivers. I really like them.
And KJ Hamler and Noah Fant. Like, and they signed the Chargers running back, Melvin Gordon. Like, they have an offense.
Right, if they can block.
Now, I brought up to Adam earlier. I'm not high on the Jets right now. I mean,
I don't know why anybody would be.
CJ Mosley, he opted out. You know, they got rid of Jamal Adams. I mean, the offense still looks stale. Adam Gase, I'm not a fan at all.
Oh
man, it's looking like they're going to be picking like number 1 and number 2.
Yes,
and
I don't disagree.
Yeah, but if that happens, obviously Sam Darnold won't look good if they if they lose that many games. So it's like, damn, he's going to be like 23. He's going to be like 23 years old, and he could get cut, And that's just unfortunate, but that would be the reality if they did pick that high, because they'd be in a sweepstakes for Trevor Lawrence.
Right.
And, it just makes 100% sense. But it's like, geez, like, that is just a nasty situation there.
I don't understand why they brought back Adam Gase. This is another thing. Like, say they hired a GM halfway through last year, or whatever it was, before the season started, after the draft. So now you hire this guy, and you keep. But whether they just didn't want to pay a coach to coach for not coach for 3 years or whatever it was. You only give him 1 year. But I don't understand why you're having a GM and then you just don't start over with a new coach, with a new GM. I don't know what CJ Mosley's thought process was, obviously, but it seems to me that it can't be coincidence that they traded their other best defensive player and then this next one drops out. Like, it's just like not worth it. Yeah, I'll check me on the next go around, because like, how is it? It just doesn't feel coincidental to me that in this situation he looks around and is like, I'm gonna put my body on the line for this.
For this guy.
Yeah.
Right, and he probably got us like a huge signing bonus when he signed there. He's like, you know what? I'm gonna take care of myself and my family and my mental health.
Right.
I'll see you guys next year.
Yeah, and I get it. Like, for some of these guys, like, you're talking $1 million decision, millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars, because this is so now his contract tolls, and you're like, oh, he's going to get that money a year later. Yeah, but that means he's a year further from free agency again.
Yeah.
So now, if he thinks he's going to get another contract, I'm not going to sit out and I have to wait another year and risk my body another year, and who knows how these guys are going to come back?
Right.
Le'Veon Bell is the best example, and he just look at. So like. And I mean, it's a running back position is different than any other position because of the beating they take, but that doesn't give me any, it wouldn't be positive if you're sitting out 2 years, basically. You're not going to be back on a football field. If we finish December 2019, you're not going to be back there until September 2021. Like, I don't know. Like, who knows how they're going to return. If they're like, hey, you know what? I like being retired to hang out with my family, and I got $30 million in the bank, so I'm good.
Yeah, no thanks. Um, it's it's just crazy. I feel like I say that every podcast, but it's but it's true. It really is true. Um, we've talked a lot of ball. Something that I did want to ask you. So I remember when you got married, I sent you my slow jam Spotify playlist, and now you have a 3-month old son. I just want to ask, like, is there any type of coincidence that went into that?
I don't think so,
Okay,
unfortunately.
okay, all right. Let that one.
I do like the. I mean, you can't get better than slow jams, like the '90s slow jams. I don't know, like, and I feel like I've fallen off the face of the earth with music, but like I feel
Yeah.
like it's not reciprocal. Like, where is it now? Like, where do we go?
No.
No.
What happened? Is everyone's attention span so low that they can't handle, like, I don't know, even
No,
like even Usher? Where do you go? Come on, man, I need another one.
it's not good, man. It's not good. And the one thing I hate about today's R&B is like at least there was like metaphors back then. Like obviously
Yeah,
they're talking about sex and doing it all that. But you kind of had to listen to the lyrics and it would. But now it's just like I'm blowing her back out. You know what I mean? It's like. And,
Just
and they got, they got the auto tune, and it's like, oh
yeah,
man,
yeah,
this
yeah,
is
yeah.
not
On the
singing.
auto tune, I don't want to hear anything
I don't
auto
want.
tune like that. Yeah.
Oh man, don't get me started, man. Hey, one more football question I got for you. Though. I pretty much ask everybody this. Alvin Kamara, he's on his last year of his deal.
Mm.
Coming off an injury where he played through, didn't have the kind of season that kind of people expected. Solid season, but not what we expect from Alvin Kamara. He looks to be healthy, and hopefully he has a great year. With this whole running back, do you pay running backs and all this stuff? How do you feel about it? Like, should the Saints just write the check because he's going to be looking for like McCaffrey money?
I, I
How do you think the Saints should attack that?
I don't pay him McCaffrey money. I don't.
Mm,
If my coach is Sean Payton, I don't pay him McCaffrey money. I,
mm,
I just like you said, he's already got a little injury history, and he was a beat that Seattle game last year. I mean, I don't
mm.
remember a guy. I'm sorry, Christian McCaffrey is awesome, but I don't remember him doing that ever,
No.
carrying like that sort of
No.
team over that caliber of opponent.
In Seattle.
Yeah, I don't remember that, but like I just don't. I'm just not of that mind that you pay that any running. I mean, I love Christian McCaffrey, but at what point how many times do we have to see it over and over and over again that you pay a running back and then in 3 years you're just like, why the hell did we pay that running back? And if you're the Rams, it wouldn't even take 3 years. It just, I don't know. If he wants that sort of money, now if he's willing to take Derrick Henry money, yeah, I do that. Sure, for sure. If I can get out in 2 years and I'm only paying, and he's got the upside of 50, but I'm only paying 10-ish per. Yeah, I do that. But I don't give him the guaranteed money that McCaffrey got. I don't believe that that's the way you build a roster.
Interesting. It's fascinating. I struggle. One day I'm like you, but don't pay him. Then another day I'm like, man, he's so good though. It's like,
It's just
damn what he wants.
He's closer to the McCaffrey than he is like the Derrick Henry. But I just like David Johnson would scare the shit out of me if I was that.
Yeah.
Like he was so freaking good too. And then as soon as he got paid, he just got hurt. I mean, that's just a position that you're going to be hurt. You're going to be hurt. The fact that like a Zeke Elliott hasn't gotten hurt yet, it's like impressive because he takes so many hits. Those guys just take it blasted and blasted and blasted. And I don't know how their bodies don't quit. Like, I don't know.
It's insane. I think the spectrum, if you're looking at running backs, it just for like Kamara's standpoint, is you have Austin Eckler, who I'm pretty sure every agent wanted to kill his agent and wanted to like just like
sure.
What are you doing to us? So you have that end of the spectrum, and then you have the Derrick Henry who's in the middle, and then you have McCaffrey on like the top echelon of what you can get.
Right.
I think I don't know Alvin Kamara, but I know probably he's going to basically say, like, I want the Christian McCaffrey money. I think if they can somewhat negotiate it where it's a Derrick Henry money or a little more than Derrick Henry money, I think an extension happens. But I just couldn't see them getting to the Christian McCaffrey money. it just because I mean the Saints they're gonna have to pay Lattimore regardless of what Saints fans think of him. Like he's a top 10 corner in the league. Like those players get paid.
Yep.
They're gonna have to pay Ryan Ramczyk, who's top 3, top 2 best right tackle in the league. Like those are players that they are gonna have to pay. That's gonna take priority over Alvin Kamara. So I don't know if they would look at it in the sense of maybe thinking like, oh, well, if this is Drew's last season, we're going to maybe get some type of, quote unquote relief by not having the same quarterback that's going to be against our cap. But
yeah,
it's tricky.
But then what stops you from just waiting and tagging him then? If that's your philosophy, then I would just wait and see what happens.
But do you franchise tag him or do you transition tag
him? You'd have to see I think there's going to be so many people on the market. You probably could get away with transitioning tag.
Because I mean,
but as long as you can match, because there's no poison pill anymore. I don't know if you remember that. Like, you can't do a poison pill. So I don't know that anybody's going to give him what he'd want on a transition. But I mean, if you got to be willing to match at a certain level. You got to be like, okay, we wanted him for a year. We got to be willing to match whatever X, Y, Z. So if you're like, yeah, we'll go to where somebody will go. Then if not, you just franchise. I mean, franchise, it's like what, 10 million for 1 year, and that's your starting negotiating point. And it's not crazy. And I think that's what you would do if you're like, well, we don't know about Drew, we don't know what we're gonna do. Then I would just punt it for a year. That's what I would do. I just don't. I'm not the guy that's gonna build around run a running back. It's just not where I would put my money.
Yeah. No, I mean I get it. I think it's gonna be fascinating. And I've said this. We talked about this on the 2 episodes ago. Obviously they added Emmanuel Sanders, but what a healthy Alvin Kamara brings to the offense, it just takes it to a completely different level.
It does. But roster building and on the field are 2 much different things. And I do love watching him. Like I said, against that Seattle game, I had never seen a running back do that in a long time. That was like Barry Sanders shit. That's what that was.
It was also ridiculous that Pete Carroll, like, afterwards came out and said, like, I didn't realize he was that good. Like, like an NFL coach who's won a Super Bowl and almost won another one came out and said that. But whatever. This is talking about same guy that thinks 9/11 was an inside job. I'm not shocked. Whatever, man. Get out of here, Pete. Come on, man. Sorry. Anyway, but I mean that's all we had, Kevin. Like we could freaking talk football all night, but
right.
This was good, man.
You have is your son sleep? Like it's just,
the wife put him to bed right before I came on. So
but we appreciate you coming on. It's gonna be our goal, like I said, for us, you, Patrick, Greg, we'll all get on the episode and have a mega podcast, time zones, cool. Whatever, willing and what have you. But I've always wanted, even when I was doing the pod with Nick, I wanted to get you on. So it's good to be able to finally get you on the pod and talk ball with you, man. You can follow Kevin on Twitter at kpatra. He tends to like tweet like Central Standard Time, like like he's awake, like he's letting those tweets fly, and appreciate it, man. You definitely have to have you on the pod again sometime.
Thanks, God. Yeah, for sure, I'll be around.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. I really appreciate guys like you because you write about every team on NFL.com. You just wrote a piece earlier about Cam Jordan's bulletin board material, whatever.
Right. Come on, let's guys. He was laughing the whole. If you watch the video, he knows what he's doing. He knows.
It's Cam
Jordan.
It's Cam Jordan. Like that's just Cam. So we understand it. So, but you know about every team. You know about guys that a lot of quote unquote NFL analysts don't even know about. So we really appreciate you coming on. I enjoyed the discussion.
I enjoyed it as well. Thanks for having me, guys.
All right. So with that, we're gonna get out of here. Everyone stay safe. Be good. With that, we're out.
Peace.
Denim is in demand at Plato's Closet in West Ashley and North Charleston. Get cash on the spot for everything denim. Bring in your trendy and classic styles of gently used name brand denim. Get paid for your denim shorts, skirts, jackets, jeans, and more. We're looking for denim that is blue, black, or a bold color, and jeans in styles like mom jeans, bootcut, baggy, flared, and ripped. We want everything denim. Sell your denim for cash at Plato's Closet today. Plato's Closet, located in West Ashley on Sam Rittenberg Boulevard and North Charleston on Rivers Avenue.